Can you hear me now? Here we go. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the fourth board of Changemakers. Today, the conversation is technology and innovation, and I don't think it will surprise anyone here to learn that we're largely going to be talking about artificial intelligence. Let me get my panelists up on stage. We have 8 fantastic panelists with a real breadth of experience. I was going to forego formal introductions in the interest of time, but as they are walking up, we may as well. We have Robert Smith, founder, chairman, and CEO of Vista Equity Partners. We have Dan Schulman, vice chairman and managing partner of Ballard Capital Group. We have Marcelo Claure of the Claure Group. We've got Julie Sweet, who's going to be sitting down, CEO of Accenture. We have Alex Clavel, co-CEO of SoftBank Investment Advisors. We have Antonio Gracias from Valor Equity. We have Hani from Sanabil, and we have Vineet Mittal from the Avada Group. Welcome to you all, and I'm thrilled to be joined by such esteemed panelists, and this is a board, which means I'm finally joining a board, and I'm a chairman, which means I have some power. So this is a session about tech and innovation, but largely we're going to be talking about AI, and I really want to get to the heart of what matters to you all. Yesterday, the Changemakers panel looked at artificial intelligence, and we spoke to the business leaders of AI. Today, we're looking at the investors, the people that are going to fuel this future and hopefully have a responsibility to shape it into something good that we want. Now, I'm going to start with Hani, because I think while we have you, what is driving your AI investment right now? I mean, you have the deepest pockets here. You can invest in any AI company you want, and I'm sure there are plenty here that would like your investment. What is it you look for?
So thank you, Anna. Great to be here. Thank you, everyone. The energy is amazing. So definitely, when it comes to the future, tomorrow's leaders will be those, and when I say leaders, not only business, even nation, like tomorrow's leaders will be those who are defined, or will be defined by those who harness the full potential of AI. We have no doubt about that. So when it comes to investments in Sanabil, we target to invest in the soft layers of the AI stack, from foundational models all the way to applications that covers so many different themes, including healthcare, education, energy, and labor productivity, and also infrastructure software. Now, as financial investors, we always seek the same things. We seek high growth, high margin, and scalable business models. We seek exceptional founders, and also we seek to invest with amazing investors. I'm so happy to have worked already with so many familiar faces around the table in deals around the world.
Yeah. Alex, yesterday we had your boss up on stage, and what was really clear was just the focus he has on artificial superintelligence, laser focused. How are you investing in that dream? I guess he is the dreamer, and you have to be the realist here.
I mean, look, the vision of a world powered by artificial superintelligence informs everything that we do. So every theme that we look at, every company, every founder, it's all about skating to where the puck is going to be. Is this a thesis? Is this a founder? Is this a team? Is this a business idea that will be successful in where we see the world going? And of course, the goal is that this founder, this company will be driving the world to where we think things are going. And so, you look at themes. We've done, foundational models. We've done the application layer. In industries, think about cybersecurity. If you see that the world is getting a lot more complex, there's a lot more of a need for cybersecurity, and so we've spent a lot of time in that theme this year. But absolutely, the view that the world is going to be radically different is the thesis that informs everything that we do.
Antonio, pick up here, because I think your thesis, when you look at what companies you want to invest in, is really mission-driven.
Yes, it begins with the question of what's good for humanity. What is the right answer for all of us? That we have I said last year, a Star Trek future, not a Terminator future. And so we begin with that lens, and then we ask ourselves the question of, how do we enable it? So we're not really thinking about where the puck is going. We want to make the puck go. We want to find the companies that create the future that we want to live in and accelerate them with both our capital and our operations teams.
Is that more important than finding companies that can make you a decent return, or do they go hand in hand?
They go hand in hand, of course, because the best companies will attract the best talent will win, And companies that are great focus on return on invested capital. If you have high ROIC and high growth rates, you win. And in this cycle, the problem is people are spraying capital everywhere and not thinking about ROIC.
Marcelo, there's a lot of lovely, lofty ideas at FII, lots of people talking about how fantastic AI will be in shaping our future. Do you think we are seeing the value from AI that we were promised? That costs are being reduced for companies, that efficiency is being created? Is AI yet delivering what we expected it to?
I think most of the investments today are going what I like to call the creation of AI or the supply of AI. I mean, there are hundreds of billions of dollars today being deployed, energy, data centers, semiconductors, LLMs, applications. But if we are very honest with ourselves, there are very, very few use cases where those hundreds of billions of dollars have been spent. I like to call it a supply of AI. And I think the future is the demand of AI. Is we have access now to this great technology that I believe is going to be the highest value creation in the history of the world. However, you need companies to be able to deploy it. And where I get excited, where I'm putting my resources, my time, is investing into companies that are leveraging AI. And I think probably one of the biggest examples that I can give is I'm still the largest independent shareholder of T-Mobile today, which is the world's most valuable telecommunications company. And I think the best way to think about it is T-Mobile is the combination of Sprint and T-Mobile, which are companies that were founded over 100 years ago. And our combined profit, maybe over 100 years, is $30 billion. Not bad. But we made a commitment that in the next 3 years, we're going to add an extra $10 billion of profit. Think about it. It took us 100 years to get to $30 billion, and it's mainly predicated upon the adoption of AI across all of the businesses. By reducing customer care calls or adopting AI agents and reducing 75 to 80%, by segmenting our customer base down to a segment of one and really doing multi or micro-personalized marketing and so on. So that's what excites me. Those are, I would call, legacy business or incumbents who have a proprietary data set, who have a differentiated, unique value proposition, and then you can turbocharge them with AI and pretty much detach them from the competition. I think, as from an investor perspective, that is the best investment because these are companies that you can create, tens of billions of dollars of value to great companies that you actually make them greater.
Julie, this is really interesting. So seeing where value is actually being created for a company, because you're looking at many companies, of course, I think it's over 70% now have adopted AI. How many of those are actually realizing the value of it?
Actually, there's a lot of great examples of value being realized. Their characteristics are companies or governments who are really focused. So the public service, interestingly enough, is often more ahead because of their singular focus. If you're a citizen in the UK, there's a social services agency there that provides food vouchers and transportation vouchers that used to take 6 to 8 weeks to process. These are some of their most vulnerable citizens. They now process it in less than a week, and we've done 50 million cases. This is at scale. It's real value. It's also saved them. It would cost another $12 million to do that, but that's at complete scale. Similarly, there's a state in the US that does child visits, child interventions. They've cut 50% of their hours using Gen AI. And then you switch to companies, so insurance companies that are now using it in underwriting and getting from 20 to 50% uptake from using Gen AI to read more submissions. The difference between those who complain that there's no value and those who are finding it tends to be 3 things: focus, a willingness to change. We call it the change delta. I advise all CEOs, if someone comes to you with a project, you ask them to write down the as is, how do they operate it? What will the to be? And if there is not a significant change between the as is and the to be, just say no. Don't do anything but say no, and say come back when there's a significant change. And then the third piece is ensuring that you're focusing on the talent. Ultimately, we can all do a lot of single use cases. We will succeed when we focus on our people, on investing in the people, on helping them understand. At Accenture, we trained 500,000 people last year on awareness, 250,000 with their first 20 hours of training so they can do something different now in technology. We have a responsibility to bring our people along, and when we do so, we will have a lot of value. And in fact, our latest report says that we can unlock $10 trillion in value if we do so with a people focus.
Your ears must have been burning. Are you a business that is listening to these tips and how you're going to be using AI? Walk us through what you're doing.
I completely agree with Julie. And in fact, the biggest resistance we faced when we were trying to implement AI was through the team. And what we did is that we had to actually tell them that the train has started, either you board it or not. And we started incentivizing the team who becomes the first adopter of AI. Right from HR, from recruitment to interviewings to employee sentiment survey, all of that has gone now on AI. And we are an energy transition company, so we use electrons from solar, wind, pumped storage, batteries. And as you know that renewable energy is intermittent in nature, and that's what people were criticizing yesterday. But what Avada is trying to do is make renewable energy as a reliable power on demand, round the clock, 24/7, because now we are building an AI platform which knows every minute that whether solar is up and running, wind is up and running, when do I kick in batteries, and when do I schedule my pumped storage, which is a long duration storage. So world is going to change. Actually, in our board meeting, we are now talking continuously that will we remain an energy company or we will transition into an energy AI company, because you build the platform which can schedule electron as consumer demand. So it's going to be transformative. I think many people criticize it because probably sometimes they don't understand and how to make it work in their businesses. And we are seeing a huge impact of it.
I'm going to move the conversation on in the interest of time. AI valuations has been a hot topic here at FII. Dan, I've got something from an AI avatar for you. Let's take a listen to Sophie. We asked her whether she feels that AI valuations have become frothy, and then I'm going to let you respond.
She's not working. Thank you, Anna. With a staggering $600 billion gap between AI market expectations and actual revenue, according to Sequoia, the current valuations appear excessively inflated.
Well, it was brief and to the point. Excessively inflated. Dan, pick up.
Well, I think we're at the very beginning of AI, and it may seem excessively inflated, but one of the roles that I have is kind of coordinating between the White House and the business community in the US. And based on my conversations with maybe some of the top 50 CEOs in the US, most of them are thinking that AI is going to have profound impacts on their organizational structure. And by the way, that will create second and third order impacts that our governments need to think about. I mean, I think based on everything I've seen from playing around with a lot of these models and looking at the trajectory of the technology, I think we reach AGI in 3 to 5 years. I think when AGI happens, I think you look function by function inside of companies and look at customer service. I think 80% of customer service people go away. I think 50% of legal teams go away. I think if you look at software programming, which everybody goes into STEM and thinks it's a great job, I think all basic software programming goes away. I think you're going to have Like when I was at PayPal and we did initial pilots with like Copilot, we had 35% productivity improvements right away in our software programming. I think analysts, if you're like in research and analysis in a bank, 50% of those analysts go away. And when I talk to the CEOs, what they say is they will probably take half to maybe 60% of those productivity savings into productivity, more output happening. But almost half will result in OpEx savings. And what does OpEx savings mean? It means less people in your company. And I think we have the potential scenario that you can see 15 to 20% unemployment levels occurring as a result of AI. And when you think about that in democracies, having 15 to 20% unemployment is really problematic as well. There are less tax revenues coming in, less services that can be provided. I think we need to think about things like UBI. I think we need to think, do we have enough work for full 5-day work weeks going forward? And so when we talk about valuation of AI, I think that's just like a surface question. These are questions that we need to deal with, not just as businesses and as business leaders, but as governments and as people who are investing and utilizing AI as well.
Wow, we brought the conversation to something quite real and a little bit scary. Let's talk about these impacts. And I'm interested to know your thoughts, Robert, on the sort of deepening divides we might see, given we will see such huge impacts, both good and bad, on different economies. And artificial intelligence is a technology that requires a lot of CapEx, is going to be in the hands of a few.
Yeah, it will for some time. It's just a question of if there's access to others. You know, our construct is, you know, a private equity firm. We own today about 86 software companies. I like to say we have 86 different AI labs now. 100% of our companies are using code generation, code assist. 80% of our companies have some product in market or under development to serve their customers, and we have productivity tools for the entire infrastructure that we also can lend to the portfolio companies to work with their customers. To Dan's point, we're seeing massive productivity already. In terms of individual developer productivity, 35% today across the board. We see things like customer intervention, 37% deflection rate. So that means you need fewer people to handle the same number of cases. In terms of productivity for your customers, we're seeing TAM increases in some cases of 100%. In other words, the market opportunity and the products that we can now sell to our customers actually has doubled in some cases. And typically in the world of enterprise software, the average return on investment of a product that our customer is buying is a little over 600%, and we're seeing inflections above that. So the point of that is if you have something you can apply Gen AI to, it gives you massive productivity. The real issue is, can you protect what it is that you have? And I think one of the essential things is, do you have sovereignty and dominion over the data and workflows, first of all? Otherwise, it becomes, you know, general fodder for anyone with a large-scale LLM to use and inform and teach and train, and in some cases, enable someone else to compete with you in your business. So it's essential as an investor to understand that core component. Then from there, applying Gen AI applications to ensure that you can now bring value, inflect value for your customers. So that's a construct to think about. Now, the real question is, who has access to that capability? Who has access to the compute? Who has access to the knowledge and the learning? And we have been struggling with, you know, these different divides for a while. The digital divide. Dan and I, when he was at PayPal, worked on a number of initiatives, one being the Southern Communities Initiative, where we're looking to enable a number of community development banks in neighborhoods that don't have branch banks, because it's not profitable in many cases for large banks to put branches there. But if you digitize these banks, you can actually inflect quite dramatically the amount of lending that can happen. I worked with Treasurer Mnuchin at the time on this, and we were able to increase the lending rates by thousands of % in these CDFIs that enabled companies to stay afloat during the pandemic and also drive capital into those organizations. But the point is you have to be intentional about it. You have to be intentional about understanding what those divides are, build digital capabilities, and gain and enable access to those platforms. You know, for us, we do it in terms of, we have these hackathons. All of our companies come to the hackathons. We build new products. We bring, you know, OpenAI, Anthropic, all the hyperscalers in, enabling our companies to utilize these tools with their best developers. And in addition, we bring students from the HBCUs to get on each one of the teams. And so they get a chance to participate and enable themselves in what's the capability, what's the construct that we use to enable our companies to be successful. So part of what we have to do, all of us, is be responsible about being intentional about creating an inclusive environment, which means giving access, which means giving capability and teaching and training environments and citizens that don't have that access naturally today.
Responsibility. Now, this is a really interesting topic. Accenture says that, well, we could see over $10 trillion in added economic value from AI if it's implemented responsibly. What does that mean? Hani, what does it mean to have responsible AI?
Interesting question, because let me take a step back, because when people mention responsible AI, I mean, throughout the last 2 years, during the public discussion, there was always like this fear and almost moral panic about what AI can do, right? But this is not really unique to AI. I mean, if you look at every innovation super cycle that happened throughout history, there are two intrinsic features, which are hype and moral panic. From the railway boom all the way to the internet, you can extract amazing quotes that all show you crazy hype and crazy moral panic that happened in every cycle. So whenever you have like a groundbreaking technology first emerging, there is always like a period or periods of inflated expectations, right? Which lead to irrational market bubbles, which eventually burst. And then we have so many losers, like tons of losers, and a very few select winners. And in so many cases, monopolies that happen, basically. So what's happening in AI is not unique. I believe AI will go through the same hype cycle and the same moral panic cycle, but it will be groundbreaking eventually. To Marcelo's point, I think the race now is on to find basically who will win and what will endure, right? Because even though AI is going like rapid cost reductions and also user adoption, but for example, retentions are still not that amazing compared to previous technologies. So we're not sure yet who's going to win and who's going to endure eventually.
How many of you believe that you have a responsibility for ethical AI? Raise of hands. None of you have a cynical view here that we talk a lot about ethics, but really investors are looking for a good return?
I'll just say one thing. I'm actually very optimistic about AI. I think it will be the ultimate equalizer for societies. It will give, for example, when you look at healthcare and education now, in so many countries, there's such a big divide between the ones who have and the ones who don't. AI have this potential to equalize the playing field for everyone, especially in these areas.
I've been pestered about 20 times now by our AI avatar. She's desperate to talk. I'm really sorry. We'll get back to the discussion. Sophie, take it away.
Oh, there she is.
Let's dig deeper. AI utopia is one thing, but without skilled human guardrails, AI risks becoming a $15.7 trillion ethical minefield by 2030, amplifying biases instead of solving them. What do you think?
Marcelo.
So the big bias, and the one that a lot of people don't like to talk about, is, I call it the single source of truth. And where I'm having a trouble is, we're all now, and I don't want to pick on OpenAI, right? But we all move into ChatGPT. And for the first time, we ask a question to ChatGPT, and ChatGPT gives us an answer. And then you got a question is, should we believe them as the single source of truth? Where are they getting their information? Is it left? Is it right? Is it privileged, underprivileged, and all that? So when you used to use Google as your main search engine, you had 10, 20 choices. You decide where to click, and you got a different information depending where you click. And in these LLMs, in many cases, we are led to believe that whatever the answer ChatGPT or Llama or Gemini gives us is actually the truth. And that's going to be a big debate going forward. Yes, you can go back and say, hey, give me a different answer, but we don't. We just take it for granted that the answer they're giving us is the truth. Now, I will take this in a different segment for 30 seconds.
Yeah.
And I have the privilege of co-investing with Antonio in a phenomenal company called K-Health. And this is very interesting, in which today, I think we're the co-pilots, or to be even more frank, I think we're better than most doctors. And we have the ability, we have developed an AI doctor that has the ability to prescribe, has an ability to diagnose, and has an ability to pretty much develop care for patients today. And it's a very interesting debate, because in this case, we have already served over 3 million patients, and we haven't had a single complaint or a single lawsuit. And then you have doctors who constantly got to debate whether the treatment that we're putting in front of them is better for a patient versus the treatment that they're used to giving it. And I take this to the emerging markets, where I do believe AI will be the equalizer to providing the same level of healthcare and education to people in emerging or underprivileged markets than the current markets that we have today. And I say that today, with an app, we are going to be able to provide the same level of care to citizens of a country than they do it if they go to Mayo Clinic. And that's remarkable. And the same thing will happen with education.
That's really refreshing that, we don't just look at AI as deepening divides, but actually, in many ways, making things more accessible. Antonio, where does this all take us in the future? I mean, I know that you like to have the Star Trek Terminator comparison. Which way are we heading?
Well, we're going to make sure at this table, and the people you heard yesterday, that we're in a Star Trek future, not a Terminator future. It's up to us. And these models, to Marcelo's point, they need a source of truth, very important. This is why we invest in XAI, which we think X data is the best source of truth. And we have to recognize that they're imbued with the values of their creators. So each country, each culture will have its own models. We will teach them to cooperate, or we will teach them to compete. If weaponized, these become very, very, very dangerous. How do we end up in a Terminator future? If some sovereign or some company decides to weaponize artificial intelligence, and then it goes bad, so it's not taught to do healthcare and help humans, it's actually taught to hurt humans, that leads to Terminator future. Together, we have to teach our models that the values we have as societies are to cooperate and to respect each other's cultures. If we do that, then I believe we get to a Star Trek future.
You've all said that you have a responsibility to promote ethical AI. So you've all put your hands up. Alex, how are we going to realize that? And who else, what other stakeholders need to be a part of this?
Well, look, first of all, as investors, we're investing money for other people, right? So we're investing money for pension funds. We're investing money for workers, for government-linked initiatives. SoftBank, as much as anyone in the world, we're a vision-driven company, we're a dream-driven company, we're a future-driven company. But in all of the places where we've invested over the years, there's been a referee of some sort. And so AI is no different. We've signed up to various self-governing statutes. We're working, the EU has come out with regulations. We're complying with that. So like in every other revolution, there is a referee. There is a way that we behave. Anything that we do, we're investing with other people, other leaders, other people's money, and we're very conscious of our responsibilities.
I just wonder whether the conversation around AI will be any different this time next year. Because I'd say this is the second, third year now that we all get together, we talk about AI, we talk about guardrails, we talk about the need for regulation. Who thinks the conversation will have moved on this time next year? Do you think there'll be any change in the area of regulation?
Well, I think going back to your question that are we all being optimistic, is there no cynic? I think you can be optimistic and cynical at the same time. Responsible AI is in everyone's interest. It's in the business interest. The impact of not engaging in responsible AI, regardless of regulation, kills companies. Our research shows if you have a bad incident in a consumer company, it can knock 25% off your market cap. And so the reason why I think a year from now we'll be talking about how responsible AI is being rolled out, regardless of the sometimes morass of regulations, is not necessarily driven by the regulators, but by the business interest that if you don't do it responsibly, you're not going to be able to be successful. And so I am optimistic that we'll get to the benefits of AI, because I think governments, companies, and citizens recognize that it is in the best interest to both have AI and to do it responsibly. And so that's why I do think a year from now, there will never be a time when business leaders come together and do not complain about regulation. That will stay the same. I do believe that we will have moved on, because we work with companies across the world, and this is a big conversation because they want to scale AI, and they recognize that in the world where you're doing individual use cases, you can control and do what you need to do to fix bias. But to actually be completely AI enabled, they need to add a capability that doesn't exist today, just like they added capabilities around data privacy, and we've added capabilities around corruption and export controls. There's a new capability that you need to build.
Yep.
Our board, our audit committee, oversees our responsible AI compliance program, just like they do corruption, export controls, data privacy, and security. That is where we're going. And so that's why I do think a year from now, it'll have moved.
I think a year from now, the technology will advance tremendously. I think you'll have fully autonomous reasoning, fully multimodal agents, and that'll be a very different thing for us than we have today. And I think that will happen in a year. I do agree with Julie that trust is a crucial element of the brand of every single company, all the companies we invest in, all the companies we've been a part of. But I don't think we should forget that in AI, you have companies competing against other companies, and they have a desire to win when they compete. And you also have countries competing against countries in the AI race as well. And that country versus country race also impacts regulatory oversight as well. And so I think this is going to be one of these areas where it's going to be very nuanced, and we need to be very smart about how we're thinking about this. And I think we need to think about what's going to happen in first order, what's going to happen second order, what's going to happen third order impacts. And every year, it's going to be more apparent. And I think to Hani's point about, we've had previous technologies in place. I think the thing that worries me about AI is the speed in which it's moving. I think we're going to have half a decade, not decades long, in terms of the full cycle of AI. And then I think the profound impact it will have will also be different than some of previous technological cycles that we've had. So I think it's going to take all of us around the table, all of us in this room, governments, thinking really hard about what are some of the potential scenarios that could emerge. And because there's a wide range of those, and we need to put them into our consideration set.
I think a few things will happen. This time next year, we will have literally millions of cases of data showing the effect of AI in corporations, in governments, in society, and frankly, as it relates to humanity. Our challenge is to read the signals properly and to be thoughtful about the interpretation of them as to what course adjustments we need to make as the technology becomes more powerful. I look at, we've now gone through 2 rounds of our own internal hackathons with our companies, and I'm seeing already we're hitting one of those inflection points of capability where now you can actually make real decisions on, what do I use this productivity for? Did I use this productivity for building more capable products? Or do I use that to drop more capital or cash to the bottom line? I can point to each one of our line items in a P&L of any one of the companies and identify how much we can take out or how much we can invest based on the impact of AI today. This time next year, we will have already made decisions, and you're going to start to see the effect of it. The implication is these companies are enabling companies. They are the Gen AI enablers for their customers. So that second order effect is actually going to be profound. And so as certain companies adopt these technologies and their capabilities, they're going to see the same sort of effects and potentially even a higher dislocation of productivity and decide, do they reduce the number of employees? Do they expand to different markets? Do they expand, their total addressable market in different ways? And then how is that impacting the communities that they sell into, where their employees are from, and the communities, the regulatory communities, because it is global in that context. And I think different regulatory bodies are going to behave differently. Different access to different levels of technology and capabilities are going to have different levels of impact. And we just need to make sure that we are very thoughtful about processing the signals that will be very clear this time next year.
And not just talking about it, but having some action as well, I imagine. Antonio?
Yes, and I think and I hope that by the time we're here next year, that we are not thinking about this problem as a business regulatory problem. It's not like the Foreign Corrupt Practices Act or cyber, it's different. It's much more like nuclear energy or nuclear weapons. That's the reality. And that there is a global discussion about this the way there was about nuclear weapons. And that discussion, I think, needs to move us from a world of mutually assured destruction, which was the framework we operated under during the Cold War, to a framework of mutually assured development. And I'm hoping that maybe something comes out of this conference is that people start thinking about it this way. I know that there are many decision makers in DC and the US who are thinking about this question of how do we actually create a global regime where models are taught to cooperate as opposed to compete. And the competition that is commercial is inside a commercial realm. But at the sovereign level, competition is more coopetition. We're cooperating and competing at the same time and not leading us toward war.
I think like UN Security Council, by next year we will start seeing early sign of UN AI Council or something around like G20 platform addressing the AI issue, because AI regulation can't be a country specific. It has to be purely global. And like Antonio was saying that nuclear power can empower the whole societies if it is used for the right thing, but if it is used for the war, it can destroy us. And same will be the power of AGI and ASI. And I think what we also need to do is all the companies which are developing those platforms, they have to start training them on ethics and probably training them on principle of karmas, that what you do, what is the consequence of what you do. So that AI from right now, like as a kid, you train your kid to learn the consequences of the mistakes. Same way, you have to start teaching the AI the consequences of if it decides to go on a different path. And I believe, like if you see, we have a good learning from cybersecurity, that all the fears which are there about cyber attacks comes true once in a while. And few months back, all the airlines were down for a few hours when the cyber attack happened. But mankind was able to address all those problems in 24 hours. So I'm sure with the AI and AGI, those challenges are going to come. But at the end of the day, there is a maker-checker. And humans who have created it probably would leave some bug somewhere to control it as well. So I'm not as skeptical. I know the challenges would be there, but there would be solutions too.
Now, our AI avatar has been pestering me once again. She is ready to present us with another question. I actually don't know how we're doing on time because there is no clock. But while we wait for the AI avatar to make her next and hopefully final appearance, I think she's about to arrive. No, she's late to the game. There is a need to have humans on a panel, right?
10 o'clock.
Oh, right. We're probably running short on time. What advice would you give to everyone in the audience here?
But with AI software spending projected to reach $297 billion by 2027, companies are incentivized to prioritize growth over abstract moral ideals. Can moral principles and responsible development survive in the face of a purely profit-driven market?
Yeah, I think they've lost control of the avatar, which is kind of concerning at this stage.
Yeah.
But she's throwing a cynical view in here, which I feel like none of you share. You're all optimists on this roundtable. Marcelo, what advice would you give to people in the audience who are considering how to invest in artificial intelligence today? Where are they going to find the value?
I think all of us have a different role to play, and it was fascinating to listen to the speakers yesterday. I mean, sovereign funds are very serious about investing in energy. Right? Everybody's investing in energy. You heard Blackstone saying that their future relies on being the biggest investor in data centers. You know, heard Massa say that he's going to try to challenge NVIDIA. You hear, the whole LLM.
And is undervalued.
Undervalued. Then you hear all the LLMs. I mean, the big debate, are you going to continue to pay OpenAI $20 a month for giving you the same service that Meta will give it to you for free? Right? So I think each of us are going to play a different role. And like I said, to me, I think my hope for next year is I have a few things that I hope to see by next year. One is I hope we're going to start seeing companies that embrace AI starting to detach from companies that don't. And then you're going to see big gaps on valuation in the actual adopters, and you're going to see companies starting to fade, number one. Number two, I truly do hope that by this time in the United States, we're going to have a more business-friendly government with less, I would say things are getting hard to do. I mean, Europe is a perfect example how overregulation in an industry that is so early, it actually takes them out of the game. Mm-hmm. And then you start seeing the US going the same way. And I truly do hope that that's not the case, that we have, whichever government comes in, that actually does less regulation and we can get back to the turn of innovation. I think one of the biggest risks that we have is overregulation in an industry that is just so new that none of us really know what the true outcome is. We all believe in the great potential. So I do hope by next year we see a little less of that and we see businesses embracing AI. Because I want to repeat what I said before, the amount of money that has been invested in CapEx is unheard of, hundreds of billions of dollars. Mm-hmm. And the value today had not been realized, and hopefully more companies will embrace it to start seeing the true value of AI. Because if not, we're going to start doubting whether those investments, whether we overinvested, overbuilt, and all that. So that is my hope.
Yeah.
Do you agree with that?
I do. Everyone does have a role to play. I think that the infrastructure that is being constructed now, I heard $900 billion going into this over the next few years. Forget the choke points of is there enough energy, is there enough transmission capability, is there enough distribution capability of the GPUs ultimately, the constraints that are likely going to be placed on NVIDIA and others about where they can actually sell and who they can actually sell to. I'm not sure that's all been factored into what this valuation expectation is for those businesses. Take $3 trillion and compound it at 16% for 3, 4, 5 years. Where do you end up? Pretty big, right? Like nothing we've ever seen before. But there are going to be certain markets and businesses, and I agree with Marcelo, that will have unique capacity to bring unique value to investors. Because again, they have a sovereignty and dominion over their data and workflows. They have a group of customers who can utilize Gen AI capability at a much lower cost with a much lower power utilization, and you can do it today. And you'll see the inflections in their P&Ls, and they should capture more of that economic rent in the near term. That ultimately will give them a command over what we'll see in those markets in terms of how they reach an equilibrium. My sense is bigger is going to be better, but there are some that aren't big that will be big because they have unique information, data, and they've controlled it properly that they can utilize these tools more effectively than others. And a lot of them are going to come into the private markets. My market's 97% private. Software companies are 97% private. So if you want to play it, you have to play it through the private markets today. And obviously, there hasn't been a great receptivity, I'll say it that way, in the public markets for certain types of software companies. So I think they're going to stay private for a lot longer, and there's going to be a lot of value captured and created in that marketplace.
So actually, this is interesting because I think when it comes to investment strategies, like most venture, or almost every venture investor is a genius at identifying losers. I mean, that's why VCs say no to most deals, right? But most of them are actually bad at picking early winners, right?
It's a big difference between identifying losers and...
Because this is where the VC alpha lies, right? So it's super challenging to do that. So I would say the best strategy is to have a long-term horizon investment and to have a vintage year diversification. But that's easy said too, because to Dan's point, what's unique about this cycle, it's actually moving super fast. I mean, if you look at the cost of operating AI today is, I think it's cutting in half every 4 months.
Right.
Compare that to 18 to 24 months in traditional compute. So that's faster than anything we knew before, right? So you should have long-term horizon, but how long? I mean, this is where the FOMO is. So it's challenging. But overall, I say vintage year diversification is a great strategy. You go in the past, like when in the search engine era. I mean, Google was not the first search engine, right? There was at least 7 before them.
Can anyone remember what they were?
Yeah, but think of an investor who came to the market and invested in everything and missed the Google IPO, right? Like 95% or 90% plus of the search engine value lied in that IPO, right? So patience and long-term horizon is very essential. Yeah.
How long-term is your horizon, Antonio?
I'm listening.
It depends on what you're asking about. Our investment horizons are longer than most. So we think about things in 5, 7, and 10-year increments. But I'm thinking about the world in sort of a 20 or 30-year time frame in my lifetime. Yeah. Because I think that's what we're building today will matter to our children 20 years, 30 years from now. K-Health, the reason we did that early stage is because I believe the primary care problem needs to be solved for all humanity. And this company's working on that, and we're proud to do that with Marcelo now. But yeah, the problems we're solving are the problems that humanity needs to solve. And I believe it's a world, we're going to a world where we've broken the resource constraints. So you don't need to destroy your resources to actually develop your economy. This is a moment where we can actually develop economies, develop humans without using excess resources because of technology. That's the future that I'm thinking about 30 years from now, but we're building it today.
The future of abundance, as your pal Elon Musk likes to talk about.
Yes, the future of abundance.
Alex, what's your advice?
In terms of investing, we look at very long-term changes. We look at industries that will be reworked, similar to some of the things Dan was talking about earlier. But we also think that on top of that, you'll see all sorts of new industries starting up. I mean, think of, again, every one of the last big revolutions that have happened in the world, and people are worried about what will happen to the farmers in the agricultural revolution, all the way to, today, what will happen to workers. We believe in human innovation. We believe in change driving all sorts of things that none of us can predict. And so we're optimistic. We're realistic about the challenges, but we think that the world adapts, and we think at this point there are lots of amazing places to invest.
Dan, I'm going to give you the final word.
Great.
To just wrap up all the amazing thoughts we've had here for the last hour.
Look, I think this technology is going to unleash unbelievably positive things that we're talking about. Healthcare, it is going to create a lot of financial health that we haven't seen before. And I think at the same time, it's going to unleash a bunch of issues that we need to spend time thinking about. I worry about unemployment on this, very much so, because it's just entirely clear to me that this technology is going to displace a lot of people. And you talk about companies that will separate themselves out from others. That means a lot of companies are going to fail. That means a lot of people are going to be unemployed when that happens. To me, that's probably the existential thing that I worry about right now, because I think we as business leaders, we as regulators, we as governments need to be thinking about that scenario. What could happen if that emerges? What do we do with those people? How do we retrain them? And into what do we retrain them? Because it's not going to be into STEM. anymore. It's not going to be like, go into the legal field, because that's going to be cut in half as well. And we need to think about those things. But are we going to see medical breakthroughs? Are we going to see materials breakthroughs? Are we going to see energy consumption breakthroughs? I think all of those things will happen. At the same time, there are a number of other things that it will unleash that we need to be very cognizant of and focus on. And if we can do that, then I hope to share some of this optimism around the table. At this point, I'm more nuanced on the future.
And you're all making me feel a little bit more optimistic that, the investors who are fueling this new future do really seem to care. Maybe I won't be so cynical in the future. Thank you so much to our board. Your insights were fantastic. 50 minutes is up. In fact, it's probably over. But it was great fun. I hope we get to do it again next year. Thank you.
Thank you, Anna.